Sounds like the podium is hot and ready to go. I think not yet. It's good to see you all. Thank you for coming. And just to let you know, my name is Jerry Owashu. I'm a member of Session, and thanks for coming again tonight. Why don't we start us off in a quick prayer. Thank you, Lord, for the fellowship. Thank you, Lord, for this congregation, its members, their strength, their courage, and their commitment. Help me deflect any questions that might be serious or that I can't answer. Seriously, thank you for all that this congregation does, how it supports each other and the people outside this wall, outside these walls. Amen. This, just to kind of recap, this is an informative meeting, so we're not going to have any kind of a vote or a corporate meeting or anything of that nature. So this is more just for the benefit of the congregation as to where we are year to date. We have a number of people that will be speaking from Session. And just to give you an update as to some of the events that the policies and procedures we've completed. But before that, I wanted to kind of step back a little bit from a standpoint of, when we say session, what does that really mean? I don't want to take it for granted that people understand what session does, what our responsibility is. And so I just want to read something quickly out of the Book of Order. And I'm not sure if everybody knows, but the Book of Order essentially is the Constitution for the Presbyterian Church. So, and this is from Ruling Elders. Session is considered ruling elders, and this is titled The Ministry of Discernment and Governance. Ruling elders are chosen, the key word is chosen, by the congregation to discern and measure its fidelity to the Word of God, and to strengthen and nurture its faith and life. Ruling elders, together with teaching elders, which Quincy would be a teaching elder, somebody with a divinity degree, exercise leadership, government, spiritual discernment, and discipline, and have the responsibilities for the life of a congregation as well as the whole church. As I mentioned, we are elected, we're nominated and elected by the congregation, meaning we represent you. And in essence, it's a democracy. In doing so, part of an effective, what we wanted to accomplish here was really kind of give you the goals that we have set here at PACE for tonight, is really update the congregation, as I mentioned a second ago, about new policies and procedures, give you a quick update on our financials and just overall operation of the church. And the other goal is really to improve communication, because in essence, an effective communication platform is greater transparency, and then you have a better feeling for the operation of your church. We already, of course, have other forms of communication, electronic and from here at the pulpit, but this is, we're hoping to continue on, and thank you, for all those who are here tonight to listen. We are recording this also, in essence, so what we'll do is post this on the web. So those that aren't able to be here, they'll be able to see this meeting as well. The other idea here is to give you a little bit of insight, what we see in session, what we're working on, as I mentioned earlier. But, we're impacted, of course, by events that concern us directly and indirectly. Quincy's going to talk a little bit about the Christian church and the Presbyterian church as a whole. So our agenda tonight is really, we're going to have Steve Coxhead, who's our treasurer, talk about and give you some update on the financials. Mike Moses, who's going to talk a little bit about buildings and grounds and what we're working on there. Frank Berzinis is going to give a quick overview as to what we're doing from staff support. We have, which is kind of like human resources. I don't know if maybe that's the way you want to classify it, but working with staff to support them and whatnot. So he'll give you an update there. Quinn is going to talk about the bylaws. We've updated those bylaws and the reasons why. And again, Quincy's going to give you kind of a quick overview as to what he sees in our health, our state of the church, as well as the state of the church beyond us, and the Presbyterian and so on. And then I'll have some closing comments, and then we'll go to any questions that you folks may have. So now I'd like to turn it over to Steve Coxhead, who's going to do, you can have a couple comments on the financials. Steve?
Well, good evening. Thank you all for coming tonight. As Jerry said, I am Steve Coxhead, your corporate treasurer, and I'm going to give you just a real quick thumbnail sketch of our financial situation. As of the end of June, we were halfway through the year. So where are we now? Income to date in excess of $345,000. Expenses to date in excess of $355,000. Currently, we're running an operating deficit of $10,000. Now, do not be unduly alarmed. This is not a brush fire, it is a controlled burn. The budget adopted by session for 2015 had a base deficit of $30,000. Now that's out of a total expense budget of over $700,000. It was the sense of session at that time that 2015 would not be a good year to try to cut back, that in view of changes we had made in staffing, everything else, that we really wanted to try to have our reach exceed our grasp. And so in some respects, there's a bit of an aspirational revenue budget there. So that's why you should not be alarmed. We are basically tracking to the plan that was adopted at the end of 2014. We're 50% through the year. We've achieved 51% of our revenue and our expense targets. Budget or deficit to date is only 34% of that planned, so that's not too bad. Okay, where does the money come from? 94% of our revenue to date has come from member donations. The remaining 6% from facilities usage, and this year we had a one-time large interest amount from cashing in a CD. The important thing to realize is that everything that happens here is funded by you, the congregation members. We do not have investments, we do not have outside sources of income. Everything we do here is funded by the congregation, individual donations, which is in some respects is a very healthy thing. Okay, so that's where it comes from. Where does the money go? Where does the $700,000 some dollars go? 69% goes to compensate our staff, and that's everyone from Quincy on down to the people that come in and empty the waste baskets and clean the carpet. Sounds like a lot. That is roughly the norm for mainline Protestant churches, to spend that portion of their budget on staff. Another 14% goes to maintain the building and grounds. If you don't do that, the building starts to fall down, the weeds grow. Another 8% on general administration expense, which includes the per capita tax that we do in fact remit to Presbytery on a monthly basis. There are some churches in the Presbytery that do not pay their per capita tax. Their finances can't support it. But so far, we've been able to do that. We spend 4% of the budget on mission, and then 5% on all other activities and ministries of the church. Okay? Okay, now, so we have an operating budget of $702,000. We have significant activities that take place outside of that budget. We have 48 things we call restricted funds. $135,000 have come in and $107,000 have gone out of those accounts so far this year. Those are off the budget. Those are other activities, designated giving and so forth. We have a preschool here at Westminster that's been a going concern for it must be over 20 years now. So far this year, they've had income of $49,000, and expenses of $41,000. So they more than covered their own expenses. And finally, we have the Memorial Garden, sometimes called the Columbarium. Had income of $1,500 this year, expenses of $500. And I understand that may, in the near future, be enlarged because we're pretty much out of capacity now. So that is basically, in a nutshell, our financial situation. Some very good news, we are currently debt-free. At the end of last year, we had paid off our mortgage. We had paid off completely the outstanding balance on the line of credit, which at one time was close to $55,000. So we are now completely debt-free, which is very unusual for mainline Presbyterian churches. So that being said, it was suggested we do something with the mortgage. We could have burnt it, but I remember the last time we had an open flame in this room, the smoke detectors went off and the fire siren started, so we decided, well, maybe we should shred it instead. So, Jerry, would you like to do the honors, or should I just drop it in? All right. This is the official Westminster shredder. All right. So this was our mortgage for $250,000. Turn it off so no one's tie gets caught. All right, so that is the financial report. Jerry, do we entertain questions, or do you want to hold those for the end? Okay. Yeah, write down your questions about the finances, and we'll return to it later on in the evening. Thank you very much.
One other thing, just a clarification. Steve mentioned 4% went to mission. That's out of the operating budget. If you look at our annual report, we contributed financially over $180,000 last year to mission-related giving, and that's on one of the annual report statements. And if you compare that to the operating budget, that's well over 20%. And you can go online and look at a number of other churches in the area or nationally, and I guarantee that not that many come close to that. So, exactly. So it's so we give quite a bit to organizations outside these walls as well. The next, I wanted to have Mike Moses come up. He's going to give a quick update on Buildings and Grounds Committee and what they've been working on. Are you going to come up here, Mike, or would you want to have everybody turn their heads and look at you that way? Sorry.
Hi. Back in 1994, we debated what kind of carpet we should put in the new building. We spent a lot of time pouring coffee and juice on different samples until we finally settled on the carpet, the blue carpet that we have through most of the building today. We wanted something that would last. It came with a 10-year warranty, and now it's been down almost 21 years. But it's starting to separate from the backing in places, and there's some permanent stains, and it's something that is going to need to be replaced. We're starting to plan. We'd like to build on the plan, what we did here in the sanctuary 3 years ago, and continue and update Fellowship Hall and South Hall and the corridors, and just continue through the rest of the building. Update the flooring and wall covering, wall finishes. So we'll be presenting something in the next probably few months, what our plans are. But if you see some ripples in the carpet or spots on the wall, know that we are working on that.
And as Mike mentioned, that we're working on the Fellowship Hall. So there's a number of the team is looking at furniture as well, so it's kind of a complete remake of that room. So Once we know and get an idea of what direction we're going to go, we'll let you know, because there's going to be a price tag to that. So, but we wanted to give you a heads up that that's coming. And next is Mr. Frank Berzinis, otherwise known as Mr. Second in Session. And he's going to give a little update on staff support.
For those who don't know me, my name is Frank Berzinis, and for the past year I have been head of staff review or staff support, and that handles all the human resource issues for the congregation. I'm a member of a team which includes John Karcher, Patty Dawes, and Sandy Kaufman, and we have been quite busy with meetings. We, for the past 2.5 years, we have met with the staff on a quarterly basis. As a matter of fact, we have a quarterly meeting coming up on July 30th, where we meet all day long with the various staff members in half-hour increments. We have a standing meeting with Quincy on Thursdays. Not all the time, but for the most part, we meet there, and we talk about issues regarding the staff. But that's kind of to give us an idea of what's going on a day-to-day basis in the staff. Late in 2014, staff review saw a need to come up with a policy regarding background checks. At that time, the only people that had to go through background checks were the staff. But we had numerous volunteers who deal on a day-to-day basis with kids, and kids are our priority. They're our future. They're the lifeblood of the congregation. So we came up with a background check policy, presented it to the session, and session approved it with minor changes. We followed that up in the second quarter of 2015 with what is called a safe sanctuary policy. Safe sanctuary policy, in essence, says that it's the nits and grits of how you deal with kids on a day-to-day basis in a situation. It covers preschool, nursery, middlers, elementary school, and high school. The essence of it is that you always have two adults in the room whenever you're dealing with a child. So that way there's nothing that can happen without two adults conspiring, if you want to say so. And that may not seem important, but our former insurance company didn't want to deal with churches anymore. So we had to get a new carrier. And the new carrier felt it was very, very important to have a safe sanctuary policy, that they specifically asked to review it, and basically added one sentence to the policy. So they were very, very satisfied with the policy, and Tom can talk about it, or you can ask him, Tom Ogren. Lastly, because Quincy came in 2014, staff review did the staff review staff evaluations for 2014, and I thought it went very, very well. I mean, people appreciated the critique that we gave them, and I think it went a long way towards building relations with the staff. Overall, if I look at the performance of what we've done, I feel that we've made a significant impact in the structure and the staffing of the church. A number of people who have left, and we have hired new people. And I think if you look at our staff currently, it has strengthened over the past 2.5 years. And it's just a growing process constantly. So, in summary, that's basically what we've done over the past 2.5 years as far as staff review is concerned.
Thanks, Frank. As I was listening to Frank and Steve talk about their presentations, hopefully one of the things that's coming out about what we've done differently over the last couple of years as well as last months is we've pretty much implemented a system of checks and balances in place, financially, staffing, and from a staff supports point of view. So we're trying to be good stewards of the contributions you provide us. From the standpoint of Steve, one of the major things that we've done this year is we went from an accrual to a cash-based accounting system, and that's for transparency. That's for ease of not only management, but of viewing the incoming and outflowing of funds. And as Frank mentioned, from a staff support standpoint, we're supporting staff, but we're also reviewing staff on their performance. And they're giving us good feedback on our performance too, to be quite honest, and what they need. So there's a back and forth dialogue that I think is healthy, as Frank mentioned. So when it comes to the next speaker, we've got Nancy Quinn, who's going to talk about the bylaws. So we've updated the bylaws because we are incorporated, and she's going to give a quick overview as to what we've done.
Good evening. I hope if you want a copy of the new bylaws, you either ask or see me and get a new copy. The reason that we updated the bylaws was because the old ones were out of date. We don't even know exactly when they were last approved. They are much longer. If you've had a chance to look at the comparison, they were on one of the tables to the side in the South Hall earlier tonight. A lot of what was in the old bylaws was simply a repetition of what was in the Book of Order. And so we tried to use the form that Presbytery provided and fill in the information based on what our Westminster traditions have been. There was only one spot that was a little bit tricky, and that's in Article 9, and we did have to consult my in-house attorney for the Indiana Code, but never fear, his fees are very reasonable. So what we have done is we've tried to make the new bylaws consistent with our traditions here at WPC and not repeat the information in the Book of Order, because that's provided to us by the Presbyterian Church of the USA. And the Book of Order changes slightly every 2-year cycle, and so that would mean our bylaws would have to be updated every 2 years, which probably isn't a bad idea to look at them once a year, but if they don't need to be updated, then save me some typing. So if you would like a copy of the new bylaws, please just raise your hand. I'll come down and give them to you now.
Hey, Nancy, if anybody has any questions, you want them specifically to refer to you or Quincy? Nancy? If anybody's any specific questions, okay.
Now, they're changeable.
Okay. Right. Well, Sessions already approved these, and we voted on them last meeting. But in essence, as Nancy mentioned, our old bylaws were basically out of date because they were copied right out of the Book of Order, which changes. So now hopefully our bylaws will move with the Book of Order and be relevant even after we review them. So that's the goal. And they were also consolidated quite a bit. Quincy and/or Nancy might be able to address it. He'll probably defer to Nancy on that. But if there's any specific questions to it, please ask Nancy. The final person is Reverend Quincy Worthington. If you could come up, please, I'd appreciate it. And Quincy's going to do kind of what he does best.
I'm going to do a song and dance?
Song and dance. Let me get out of the way.
Yeah. This time I'd like to ask all the children to come forward now. I had enough of that this morning. I guess what Jerry had really talked to me about speaking to you about is kind of where I see the health and life of our church right now, not only in the context of us as a congregation, but maybe better suited in the context of the Presbyterian Church as a whole. A few years ago, Dick Rogers talked to you all about the bell curve, about how churches have a lifespan and it's working on a curve, and that we were towards the top, maybe beginning to slump down a little bit. I think we've arrested the slump down. I don't think it means that we're necessarily out of the woods yet as far as church life goes, but I think we've got a lot of signs of health and of vitality and of revitalization in the church. You get a sense of energy when you come here. There are a lot of new faces here, a lot of visitors, a lot of people participating in the life of the church, and I think all those are really good signs. What I worry about now as we kind of move forward from this point is the temptation there is to rest on our laurels and to think that we've got it figured out or that we're doing okay. And that's what I've noticed from churches I've talked to in my involvement in different presbytery committees. That's really when churches get in trouble. There are kind of two things. When they want to do the same thing that they've done for 30 years thinking it'll work if they just do it harder, which it doesn't end up working, or that they think everything's okay now and we can just relax and take a breath. So I think we still need to push ourselves to find ways to be innovative in our ministry and how we connect and how we bring the gospel of Jesus Christ both among our midst and then into the greater community in which we live. And how do we live out the mission of what it means to be Westminster? It's interesting, they say right now in Presbyterian circles that if you aren't shrinking, that you are an exception to the rule. And we aren't shrinking. In fact, we're growing. We're not just maintaining, but we're growing a little bit. So we're kind of beating the curve as far as a lot of Presbyterian churches go. It's really a hard time in Christianity in general. The mainliners have kind of hit it first, but we're even seeing now slumps in evangelical Christianity and the shrinking of mega churches. So there's something going on where people are leaving the church. And that should be of alarm for us, regardless of whether or not we grow here or not. As Presbyterians, we believe very strongly in the connectional church. And right now, what we see, especially in our immediate area, is a lot of Presbyterian churches and a lot of other churches in our community struggling. And I think one of our goals as we move forward is to figure out how we can be a resource and a support to those congregations. Oh, phew, I thought he was coming up here. How do we support not only just the other Presbyterian churches in our areas, but how do we support the other churches in our area? We are very blessed here with our resources. We're very blessed here with the skills and the talents of a lot of congregation members and our ability to do different missions. So the question is, how do we help other churches in our area live into their mission in serving Jesus Christ? Because I think as a connectional church, what we believe is that we grow stronger while everybody grows stronger. And so that's I think, going to be one of our areas for the future to look at. I'll throw it back to you now. You want me to keep talking? Okay. Yeah, now it's time for the song and dance. Aren't you all lucky? Yeah, so I think everything's going pretty well. Yeah. Yeah, I was done a few minutes ago, actually, so.
So, we do take the work here seriously, believe it or not. I did want to close with a couple closing comments. I'm repeating myself here, but one of the things that, because I had the advantage, or we had the advantage of being on session and seeing and hearing and being involved in things that you all don't have. But what I want to convey is my personal feelings, and that I'm excited, I'm optimistic, and I'm grateful to be a member of Westminster. And I'll tell you why. Just from the standpoint of we are a living and breathing congregation that's doing Christ's work. I mentioned earlier that, we are changing lives. We are making a difference. This place has changed my life. It's changed my family's life. Again, I'm grateful for that. And I know we're not the only ones that have experienced that. But we're also changing lives outside of these walls. Habitat for Humanity was started in Northwest Indiana here. Hearts for Africa. Fishes and Loaves. I'm sure Ed's got a million stories related to how Fishes and Loaves have benefited a number of people. Our Christian education is important to us for young and old. And as Quincy mentioned about resting on our laurels, I don't think that's been our way. I don't believe this is a country club where we just kind of, enjoy each other's company and that's about it. As I mentioned, we are an active, involved congregation. But we know we can always do better. I think we're not perfect. We've experienced a number of problems over the years, but I think we overcome them. If you just look around, we have a small group here. It is the summer. But, our congregation, as Quincy mentioned, is growing. But one of the things that's consistent throughout the years that I've been here is you look around. I mean, we have a talented congregation. They're giving. We're active. I mean, not only active here, but we're active in Rotary. We're active in Lions. We're active in other places beyond this church. We're educated. We're caring, and I think we're open. I mean, I look around and I've talked to a nuclear physicist that belongs here, a federal judge. I've talked to housewives, educators, professional health care providers. I mean, the list goes on and on. From A to Z, we have it. Plumbers, electricians, everything. A very talented group, and I believe we're all committed. We've also weathered a number of storms together. Financially, we've had our own problems internally, but we weathered them. And considering where some of the external forces that are going on in the Presbyterian, but just Christian church in general, I think that's a pretty remarkable thing to say. So that leads to my optimism and excitement. As Quincy hinted upon, I think we're really well positioned, and have the capacity for growth. Financially, we're stable. Financially, we're doing well. We could always do better. From an operational standpoint, I mean, there are a number of things we'd like to do that we, quite honestly, aren't able to because we have to live within our budget, which is good. But I know there's a number of things that we'd like to try to do. But my point is that we are financially stable. We're willing to change. We've talked about that in evaluations that we've done when Dave Comstock was here. And those two key factors give us the flexibility to make things happen. A lot of churches as you've probably been involved in Quincy, they're just not, as you mentioned, they try to do the same thing that they've done before. And in that case, it's not going to be successful for the vitality of the church in the future. You have to adjust. I think we're willing and able to do that based on what we've heard you say over the last few years. So are we going to be presented with challenges in the future? Absolutely. But who doesn't get a curveball from life? But we've handled them. I expect us to be able to handle those as well as they come our way. As I was preparing what I was going to say tonight, as I was working on my notes at my daughter's volleyball game or practice on Friday, and I saw a girl, you know how the athletic shirts have phrases and sayings that try to inspire people. Well, the timing must have been right because I got inspired. And I saw a shirt that said, "If you believe, you will achieve." Well, I believe in Westminster. Thank you. And if anybody has any questions, we could answer those now.
This question is for Nancy.
Okay. Tim Sweeney.
Hello. Can you hear me now? This question is for Nancy. Is the statement of purpose of mission different than the mission statement?
The statement of purpose and mission would be different than the mission statement.
Okay, so it is different. It's not the same thing. Okay. We don't have to change any plaques or anything. No.
Okay. Yeah, we do have a microphone we can pass out if anybody has any questions.
And so this is for Quincy or whoever else can answer. And I'm thinking about the growth of the church and new members who come. I've heard it said that people don't join denominations, they join congregations, which I think is accurate. But so what I'd like to hear is, as you hear about motivations for new people joining this church, is it just all the wonderful qualities that make up Westminster, or is there something about the Presbyterian tradition or even mainstream Protestantism that is appealing to the people who come, or is it just all about the gifts that make up Westminster?
Well, since most of the personnel committee's here, mostly it's me that they say that they're attracted to. You know, it's interesting. It's interesting, you know, because I think this church especially, it's funny, we have more ex-Catholics than we do Presbyterians in this church. Most of them don't understand or don't know when they get here what is uniquely Presbyterian and what is uniquely Westminster, right? What I found is, as far as the community goes, what attracts them about the community, that is uniquely Westminster, although I would hope other churches had it. You know, that we have a strong sense of community, that we have a strong sense of love and care for one another, and that we're passionate about taking the mission of the church outside of the walls of the church, and then we really reach out. You know, these are things that can be attributed to Westminster Presbyterian Church, but I've seen that passion and dedication come through the Presbyterian Church and through Reformed theology. A lot of people like the way our church service is structured and our emphasis on sacrament and the way we do worship and focus on the Word. These things are part of who we are, but they're also part of our Presbyterian tradition that teach us. So it's hard sometimes to separate the two, because I think the one informs the other. So I think that's probably as specifically vague as I can possibly get with you. So.
Do you see any changes coming up in the Presbyterian Church? Or what are you going to say?
Yeah, we're PCUSA. The question was, do I see any changes coming as far as through the denomination? I think, the Reformed mantra, in the mantra of the Presbyterian Church is reformed and always reforming. And so I think what we see, especially now, specifically in our denomination, and what I hear about from other denominations, although I'm not as familiar, is we're really struggling to figure out how to be the church of the 21st century, of what does it mean to be the church in the 21st century. I never thought that I would see the changes in our denomination that I've seen in the past 5 years happen this quickly. So I'm not sure I necessarily feel comfortable or qualified to speak about what's happening at a denominational level as far as changes that are coming down the pike at us. But I think right now in the world in which we live, and especially in American Christianity, we are struggling to figure out what it means to be the church in the 21st century. And what is it, how do we relate to society? What is our role in culture? Because our roles dramatically changed in the past 50 years. And it's been, I think, painful for the church as a whole, but I think it's also a time for liberation as well, and can be a liberating experience. So, another extremely vague answer for you. Any other questions?
How do you evaluate staff performance? Is it subjective, objective, or both?
What we've been trying to do is to, 2014, we were sitting down with the staff on a quarterly basis, and we were trying to get them to define their goals and objectives for the coming year, and then evaluate them on a quarterly basis to see how they're doing, and let them themselves take a look at their goals and objectives and see how they're doing. Okay? And what we were trying to do is we asked Quincy for his goals and objectives, and then to have them create goals and objectives that supported Quincy's. It didn't dovetail into what we would have liked it to be, but it was pretty close. And now Quincy had set goals for 2015, and now he's working to try to get their goals and objectives to dovetail into his, to support his. Did that answer? Okay, so it's objective as much as possible, but there is some subjectivity in it, no matter what you do. Okay. In 2014, there were places in evaluation where it was very objective, and then others where it was subjective. I mean, how do you evaluate congregational support? I mean, that's kind of touchy-feely, but that's what you're really trying to evaluate. Okay.
Great, thanks, Frank. Any other questions? It's your last chance. All right.
So I call Mr. Second.
For buildings and grounds.
We spend a lot of money on our audio systems and our computer systems, and upstairs in the high school room, we still aren't wired to connect with the sanctuary on Sunday mornings for sermons. Is there any way that, and I know that we're a big church and a long church, but it just seems like we're falling with all this investment that we put into the system, that we're still not getting where we should be. And even like if we were in Philadelphia this morning, it'd be nice to pick up the sermon sometimes during class, because you're dovetailed with us there.
Yeah, I'm going to let Mike handle that because
We can certainly look at doing that. And I know you've heard that mentioned before for the, possibly doing it for the high school, but I had not heard for all that.
Is that,
did you hear that? Wally just said he'd help you out with it. That's great. Yeah, I think that's definitely something we need to consider and look into. Any other questions? Yes.
I know several people who have expressed an interest in becoming members, and I know some of them have attended the membership classes. Perhaps recently you have taken some in, and that was the Sunday I wasn't here. Or will we be taking in some new members soon?
Yes, we've taken in 23 new members so far, and then we just had another new membership class not too long ago that we haven't had the official service for. But with the summer, what we're trying to do is there were some from a previous class that weren't able to be here for the Sunday that we welcomed them in. So we're trying to coordinate about 15 different schedules to try and get that set up. And then in the fall, we're going to resume again with having new member classes, because I know we've had some interest from people during the summer. Which is, it's a new experience for me. At my previous churches, we've kind of just had new member classes as we've needed them. And I guess that's kind of been the history here for at least a few years as well. And the blessing and the curse is that every few weeks then we could have a new member class of a few new members coming in. So I think what we're trying to do coming up in the 2015-16 programming year of the church is to be a little bit more intentional about advertising and having these things on a set schedule to work. But yeah, I know that since I've been here since last June, over a year I guess now, we've taken in almost 40 new members, which is almost double what we've done in the past few years each year. So yeah, I know our last class was about 20. Our last class was about 20 new members, which was, would have been a banner year in every other church I've served in. In some churches, I would have almost doubled them, I think. So it's really quite remarkable, yeah. Any other questions or comments or concerns? I'm sorry? All ages, yeah. Yeah, it really has run the gamut from younger families into the older generation. So yeah, it really is. Not as old as Frank, but they've been pretty old. Right. Yes, Bill. I know Jeff way in the back is putting together and launching a new email service for the church, I believe. So I'm hoping that'll take care of some of the issue, but. Okay, excellent. Yeah, Jeff said to keep us posted if you do get spam, especially after we launch the new service, because then that means we will definitely have some things that we need to address and take care of pretty quickly with that.
when you say let us know,
Let us know, meaning contact the church office and tell them, or ask directly to speak with Jeff about it. Or if you really wanted to know him, you could forward all the spam emails you're getting directly to him. So, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Jeff Whitney, our new communications coordinator. We introduced him a while ago. Here, Jeff, why don't you come forward?
Can you shine a spotlight right on him?
And Jeff's the one that's been coming up with all the great images that you've been seeing throughout the summer, and he's working as our new communications coordinator as Gina has shifted over into administrative assistant.
Is he responsible for that red convertible that was up there last Sunday? It's so hard to pay attention to.
Yeah, well, right.
Ford Mustang convertible.
Yeah. It has been the most talked about bulletin cover and projection image in the history of the Presbyterian Church, I think, at this point.
So mission accomplished.
You're right, yeah.
That's actually Trisha's, for preschool, Trisha's father's car. And he was showing his grandson some different photographic lighting, and she showed me the picture. I'm like, ooh, that's summary in red. There we go.
Yeah, absolutely. You sure? You don't want to stand up here?
Tell me a little bit about his background.
Any other questions or comments or concerns? Jerry was telling me to tell you a bit of Jeff's background, but he's putting me on the spot, and I can't think of much of it. He has 20 years of church experience, and
Yes. Step aside, please. I'm telling you.
you got children's sermon this next Sunday, too. So.
I think I could do a better job than what you got today. Oh, boy. They lit you up, didn't they? I'm just getting him back from last Sunday. Jeff, as Frank mentioned, in all honesty, to be serious, we're joking around, but Frank mentioned we've done a number of, there's new positions that have been created in staff, or new people in the staff structure. And Jeff is, of course, one of them. He's part-time, but Jeff's been involved in churches at other, Green Bay and Seattle and other places, and he's very good in communications. Look forward to working with Jeff. I'm on the stewardship committee. And what you will probably start to expect out of us is kind of, and I touched upon it earlier, about the impact that we have on people and within this community, within the walls and beyond. And I think you're going to start seeing some more of that from Jeff and the stewardship committee, because I think it's important for people to really understand the difference we make, because we do make a difference, and sometimes we take it for granted because we don't see it. So expect to see some of that information coming out in video, in other formats, and Jeff's going to be instrumental in that. So as Sonia mentioned, he's a great addition. He's done a lot of things, upgrading our website, which is key for growth and new membership and whatnot. So, I mean, we need to close this. It's almost 7 o'clock. I enjoy the fellowship we have here, but it is Sunday night. In all honesty, it's been over a year since Quincy's been here. We talked about upgrading staff, and he's definitely one of them. So we've been fortunate to have him, and I know I appreciate working with Quincy, and I think so does most of Session. I could speak for you. And we look forward to bringing more information to you, talking more about some other plans we have and presenting them to you. But in the meantime, if you want to know who Session is, our pictures are on the hallway. We're also in the annual report, and feel free to contact us. And maybe if there's anything else, if anybody has any questions, we can answer those still. Answer them now, but if not, we'll do a quick closing prayer. Any other questions? All right. Let's do a quick prayer. Thank you, Lord, for all that you've given us. Thank you for this day and finally some summer weather. Again, we appreciate this congregation and all the work that they do. Help us to continue to do that and grow spiritually, physically, emotionally, in all ways. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you. Have a good night.